Hello there! Today is day 8 of working on an untitled project, so let's hop right in. So there are a lot of changes today, so I'll try to go quickly. So the core stuff. I slowed down the Starburst's third projectile. It was bugged and super fast, so now it is less fast. I actually need to hop back there to show that off. And so that's a lot better now. I fixed a bug where the buds here would spawn 2 health pickups at once. That's why last time they were healing so much, was they were double spawning. I also shrank them down a bit. I thought they were too big and could do with a little bit of shrinkage. I removed the ugly wings from the charger tanks. They're still pretty ugly. I don't like them, but they should hopefully be also a little bit less buggy right now. If they clip the corner of a wall, they can still get pretty upset. They just get unhappy. Yeah. I made the dummy enemies darker because they're still used as placeholders in a few spots. The small ones specifically. I added sight to the prototype enemy just for initial detection. Oh, whoops. I should probably adjust some of the logic there. So they have some sight, and so for initial detection and for once they stop seeing the player for a moment, they'll just revert to their idle behavior, which right now is just sitting still. I also add sight to the Wanderer enemy, so they aren't shooting right now. I changed the size of the projectiles for the bud enemies compared to and the prototype enemies, just so you can tell them apart, which is important in the heat of the moment because one of those projectiles dies early and the other does not. So that's important. A lot of the stuff is just, getting ready for a prototype day, or playtest day, rather. Playtest of the prototype day. I tweaked a bunch of weapon damage ranges, lots of little changes, mostly reducing the damage spread on weapons, which gets into discussion I'll talk about later. I reduced the shotgun spread, so that's a bit more viable as an option right now. I increased the buds projectile damage. So these guys do a bit more damage, given that they're easier to dodge and easier to avoid. I added a temporary instruction panel and playtest 1 label to the main menu. I added safeguards. This one's not easy to show off, but I added safeguards so that enemies won't spawn inside each other or inside a wall. There's arrays around each of them that you can see here, showing where what do they check before they spawn in. I fixed a long-standing prototype issue with the prototype enemy, where the orbiting enemy would rocket away from you if you got too close to it. There was a value in there that wasn't normalized, so that just caused some obscene stuff. And so when you went close and into the gravity wall, they escaped the gravity wall even, just because of that. I fixed a bug where in one of the rooms in the sideways view room that caused the grenade spray projectiles to fly into the air. As a brief side note here, the player is sticking to the walls pretty badly. I need to resolve this somehow. I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna do for that, but just pressing A and D here, that's not good. I reverted the physics using the normal update loop, and I've swapped back to fixed update because variable frame rates break the physics pretty badly. Because when you then run the application, when you add forces, it long story short, it just breaks, and I wish that wasn't the case. I wish I could just I don't want to tie the camera to fixed update, but that is what I've had to do because that's just what that's the solution. I've adjusted the spawn rates to the extent I'm able to, and the enemies in the rooms that that have the charger tank in them to decrease the frequency of the charger tank, because some moons are spawning with like 5 of them at once, and that just didn't feel right. It felt like an enemy there should have only be 1 or 2 of at once. This also affected the buds. The buds spawn a bit less. I added an extra blocker in the sideways U-shaped room to discourage sniping. So there's that there, and that just forces you to be a bit closer to the combat here. I might want to shrink this over here too, just to make sure that because otherwise you can just go up here and snipe everything right now, and that's not good. I added a temporary display display section here to allow you to swap which display you're using. I have confirmed that works. It doesn't work in editor, unfortunately, and I can't make sure that off because I don't have 2 scenes set up in OBS anyways. I need to make a proper settings menu for this, but this will do for a prototype. And today was a big milestone. Today is playtest day. I packaged this up and have an actual executable. Yeah, big day. I got this out the door, and I can at least show that where it swaps. Yeah, I'm really happy with the progress so far. I probably should have gotten it out to playtest a bit sooner, but I'm slow on this front. And like the fundamental concept of a twin stick shooter itself doesn't need to be tested. It's just like the variations on top of it that need to be tested. So, like, yeah. Messaged a bunch of friends, family, coworkers, or former coworkers rather, to see if anyone would play it, and hopefully I'll get a couple bites on that and get some data. That's not showing 3, is it? Yeah. Anyways, that is all the critical updates to the game. That was a very long segment, but big day, lots of stuff. If you would like to hear me ramble about a bunch more stuff, feel free to stick around. Otherwise, feel free to click off the video. For the charger tank, I removed the wings from it, which helps the visuals a bit, but like you can still see that like it's not particularly happy with when dealing with walls. It's really easy for it to get stuck. I'm not getting a good example right now, but you can just sort of see it's just sort of like unhappy. And I don't know, maybe it needs to like raycast out a bit to see like when it can or should push away from walls automatically. Maybe it should have raycasts out to say, hey, if I'm going to collide with the wall, I need to stop short, or like something. Just this isn't working. It bugs out way too often. It's currently trying to turn and it cannot. On a more minor note, I fixed the UI here was a bit weird. I actually can't show it in the cooked build because there is no scroll bar, but I fixed the direction of the scroll wheel. Actually, I can show it here. So when I'm scrolling down, it scrolls to the right now instead of the other way. Turns out negative values in the scroll sensitivity just fix that. Yeah. And as I know, I shifted some of these down because they both shifted up instead of down. So on the topic of weapon damages, I'm wondering if weapons should actually have damage ranges. Like right now, there's the damage range in min and max for it, and I'm wondering if that should actually be a thing or not, because that might. I'm just wondering if it actually adds anything to the game. It's understandable for something like the grenade spray, because this is like the center of the explosion, and this is the edge of the explosion. So if you hit someone on the edge of the explosion, it does less damage. That makes a bit more sense. But just having random number values just doesn't. I'm not sure if it fits. Something to experiment with. I might have weapons do less damage the further they travel. This is pretty common in games, and I could do something that Nova Drift does, where like some of the projectiles like just shrink down to indicate that they're becoming less powerful. That could be interesting. I could do that for both friendly and enemy projectiles, so that things don't just pop in and out of existence. On the topic of safeguarding enemies from spawning into each other, right now I do 100 iterations of that. I pick an enemy to spawn in, and then I do 100 iterations, and I check, can I spawn this here? If not, then it will just skip that spawn. This might be a bit heavy on the CPU. It will only do this once every spawn attempt, which is only once every fraction of a second. So it shouldn't be too hitchy. Like, it's not trying to spawn all the enemies at once or anything like that. But yeah, it's something to tune, I guess. This should succeed pretty quickly in most cases. It should be very rare that this doesn't succeed very quickly. On the topic of the prototype enemy bug, I actually want to show that off because it was interesting. Where is it? Here we go. So what was not being normalized was this guy. So if I just take that out, and wait for Unity to compile. This was actually really interesting because I actually kind of like it, because the enemy, like shoots away from you when you get close to it, which feels about right for, an orbiting enemy. Let me just clear up these other guys first. So you can see, like, it gets really fast, and like if I pull out the gravity well, they cluster, and then you push close to them, and they were actually resisting that pretty well. They don't quite shoot out of it. I remember they may have, the time when they did that, they may have had a bit more juice behind them to start with. But that might make a comeback as an actual feature. When you get close to them, they increase their velocity, but that may be more of a, when they start orbiting, they slow down. There's like a speed multiplier of like 0.5 on the speed when they're orbiting. So, to consider. The sideways U room, let me pull up that bug pretty quick. That's just re-enabling these guys, and then we can play the game. Wait for it to spin up. Unreal starts faster than this. Like, it shouldn't be that hard to... Hey, got in one. So what I was finding was, let me just clear out these enemies real quick. To show it off, I'm also going to grab this guy, set that to 0, so that they won't go away. And I can just pause here, and you can see that some of the projectiles have just flown up into the air. And the issue is that, there's a gap right here, and so they hit that and they just launch up into the air, and they don't have gravity on them, and I'm not freezing any of the constraints on them. There are a couple solutions to that, obviously just freezing constraints, but that makes me wonder, do I even need any of the colliders for the ground here? And I don't think I do, but I'm kind of just keeping it around right now because, like, what's the harm? I'm going to do a pass on rooms at some point, and, you know, at that point I'll make a better decision on, you know, what am I doing with that. But for right now, these guys get disabled because they were causing bugs. It would cause them to explode up in the air and, like, not even hit the enemies, which was not good. So on the topic of adding sight to the prototype enemies, it really shows how they need some kind of idle behavior. This is the case for the Trojan tank as well. The Wanderer is fine, and the Bud is fine. But like this here, just all of them just going silent like that, just they need some sort of idle behavior. This is fine enough for a prototype, but it's something to work on. This is a pretty big topic, a pretty big issue. So on the topic of reverting back to using fixed update instead of the normal update loop, I also tried setting the player rigid by to use interpolate and extrapolate for the physics, and that just doesn't work. Like, it was still jittery when I use the camera. It's supposed to do something. It's supposed to interpolate it across the normal frames, but for whatever reason, it's just not working, and that's really frustrating. Because that would be a great solution if that just worked. Like, then I don't need to tie the main camera to using a fixed update, and then the game can run at high FPS, and you know, you won't really notice. But this is unfortunately where I'm at. I suppose it'll be fine because then you won't have jitters on any of the enemies as well, and that's nice. Unless interpolate worked for them as well, in which case I could just interpolate everything and so on and so forth. It would be nice, but yeah. In terms of what happened, I can show that off. This is a copy of that build. This is with the frame. So I capped the frame rate in this one to 60 as an attempt to, because initially what was happening was everything turned really slowly and moved really slowly because the frame rate was astronomical because the game is so light right now. So this is my attempt to, like, hey, let's cap the frame rate to 60 and see what happens. And yeah, these guys are turning really fast and moving really fast. And yeah, that's what happened in that case. So yeah. Not good. The temporary display selection menu. I spent an abnormally long time on this. Just struggling for ages. My comment on that is that AI websites are ruining everything nowadays. It took me ages to find the info I was actually looking for. I kept getting directed to display.displays, and that's not correct. You don't do things that way. That's for like multiple displays for one game, not which display are you using. I kind of wish it was that simple, but it's not. But that's what I was finding, and you know, one thing that I noticed is, hey, I accidentally limited my search to the past year, which meant that I had like 8 links to the same AI website, just different articles discussing the exact same thing, and I'd look through them and they're telling me to, hey, use this function call and choose the parameters you pass in, and I go to that function, and those weren't the parameters that function took, and it was just infuriating. So just wanted to vent about that. Anyways, the rambles this time didn't take too long relative to the core stuff, because there was a lot of core stuff, but that's everything, I think. I'm really happy with progress so far. I'm hoping a bunch of people will playtest the game. or at least, like 4 of them, and give me some feedback. Yeah. If you have any comments, questions, ideas, or anything else in your mind, leave a comment below. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.